Throughout history, many spiritual traditions have spoken about the importance of conserving and directing life energy. In various cultures, this life energy has different names: qi in Chinese philosophy, prana in Indian yogic teachings, and simply vital force in Western mysticism. Within the male body, semen has often been viewed as a concentrated form of this life force. Because it carries the potential to create life, ancient teachers believed it also holds immense spiritual power when preserved and directed inward rather than constantly expelled. From this viewpoint, semen retention is not merely a physical practice. It is a spiritual discipline aimed at awakening higher levels of consciousness. Semen is sometimes referred to as the seed of life. From a biological perspective, it contains the genetic material required to create another human being. But spiritually minded traditions go beyond the biological explanation. They see this seed as a symbol of creative potential, an energy capable of building not only a body but also character, wisdom, and spiritual insight. When a man practices semen retention, he chooses not to dissipate this creative energy through constant release. Instead, he preserves it. Spiritually, this is believed to allow the body and mind to redirect that energy upward into higher pursuits: learning, creativity, service, meditation, and personal transformation. Many spiritual teachers have compared this process to storing water in a reservoir. When water is allowed to run freely without control, it may provide temporary relief but ultimately disappears. When stored and channeled properly, however, it can power turbines, irrigate fields, and sustain life. Similarly, retained sexual energy can be transformed into mental clarity, emotional strength, and spiritual awareness. Spiritual growth has always required discipline. Whether through fasting, prayer, meditation, or solitude, spiritual traditions often ask practitioners to restrain certain impulses in order to gain mastery over themselves. Semen retention can be understood as part of this broader principle of self-mastery. The spiritual perspective does not view sexual energy as evil or shameful. On the contrary, it is seen as sacred and powerful. Because it is powerful, it must be handled consciously. Retention is not about suppression but about control. It is about deciding when and how this energy will be used rather than being driven by impulse. When a man learns to control his sexual urges, he experiences a shift in his internal hierarchy. Instead of being ruled by instinct, he becomes guided by intention. This transition from instinct to intention is a cornerstone of spiritual maturity. It is the difference between living reactively and living deliberately. One of the most important ideas in the spiritual view of semen retention is transmutation. Transmutation means transforming one form of energy into another. Just as fire can transform raw metal into a refined tool, retained sexual energy can be transformed into higher expressions of life. This transformation does not happen automatically. It requires awareness and direction. Practices such as meditation, exercise, creative work, prayer, and purposeful activity help channel the stored energy upward. Many practitioners report that when they retain their seed and actively engage in meaningful work, they experience increased motivation, sharper focus, and a deeper sense of purpose. The energy that might have been spent on momentary pleasure becomes available for building a life aligned with one's highest values. From a spiritual standpoint, sexual energy is considered one of the strongest energies within the human system. When that energy is consciously directed, it can fuel personal evolution. Another spiritual benefit often associated with semen retention is greater mental clarity. Constant indulgence in sensual pleasure can leave the mind scattered and restless. Retention encourages a quieter internal state where thoughts become more focused and intentional. This clarity can deepen spiritual practices such as meditation or contemplation. Many spiritual traditions teach that excessive indulgence in sensual pleasure can cloud awareness and keep the mind anchored in lower desires. When those impulses are moderated, the mind becomes more capable of observing reality without constant distraction. Practitioners sometimes describe a heightened sense of presence, an ability to be fully engaged with the moment rather than continually chasing stimulation. This presence allows deeper reflection about life, purpose, relationships, and values. In this sense, semen retention acts as a doorway into mindfulness. By learning to observe and control urges, a man begins to understand the workings of his own mind. Willpower is one of the most valuable spiritual qualities a person can develop. The ability to choose what is right rather than what is easy shapes the direction of one's life. Semen retention strengthens this capacity. Sexual desire is among the most powerful biological urges humans experience. When a person learns to regulate this impulse, it creates a ripple effect across other areas of life. If one can control such a powerful urge, smaller temptations, laziness, distraction, unhealthy habits become easier to manage. Over time, this strengthens a man's sense of self-respect. He begins to see himself as someone capable of discipline and integrity. This internal respect often leads to improved behavior, clear boundaries, and greater confidence. Spiritually speaking, mastery over the self is more important than mastery over the external world. A person who cannot control his own impulses will always remain a servant to them. Retention becomes a training ground for self-governance. In many ancient traditions, sexual energy was treated as sacred. Taoist teachings in China, certain yogic traditions in India, and mystical philosophies in the West all emphasize the careful management of reproductive energy. These traditions did not advocate permanent abstinence for everyone. Instead, they taught conscious engagement with sexuality. Sexual energy was considered too powerful to be used recklessly. Its purpose was not merely pleasure but also creation of life, connection, and spiritual growth. Within this framework, semen retention becomes a way of honoring the sacred nature of the body. Rather than treating sexual energy as something to constantly discharge, the practitioner recognizes its value and handles it with respect. This respect changes the relationship one has with desire. Desire becomes a signal of energy rather than a command that must be obeyed immediately. One reason semen retention is often associated with spirituality is its ability to redirect attention toward purpose. When a person constantly chases pleasure, long-term goals can lose their importance. Immediate gratification overshadows deeper aspirations. Retention interrupts this cycle. By stepping back from habitual indulgence, a man begins to see how much energy and time were previously devoted to fleeting pleasure. That realization can inspire a shift toward meaningful pursuits. Many practitioners report that during periods of retention they feel more driven to build their careers, improve their health, pursue creative projects, or deepen spiritual practices. The energy once scattered across endless stimulation becomes focused, like a beam of light. Spiritually, this is seen as aligning one's life with a higher calling rather than with temporary satisfaction. Another spiritual dimension of semen retention is humility. The practice often reveals how powerful and persistent human desires can be. In the process of learning to control these urges, a man becomes more aware of his own weaknesses. This awareness can lead to humility. Instead of believing he is fully in control of himself, he recognizes that discipline requires continuous effort. This humility encourages compassion for others who struggle with their own habits and impulses. Spiritual growth is rarely about perfection. It is about continuous refinement. Each challenge faced during retention becomes an opportunity to strengthen patience, resilience, and self-understanding. From a spiritual perspective, semen retention can also change the way a man relates to others. When sexual desire dominates the mind, interactions with people, especially potential partners, may become filtered through that desire. Retention can create a different dynamic. Instead of seeing others primarily as objects of attraction, the practitioner may become more attentive to personality, character, and emotional connection. This shift fosters deeper respect and presence in relationships. Conversations become more genuine, and attention is less divided by constant internal cravings. Spiritual traditions often emphasize the importance of seeing others as complete human beings rather than as instruments of personal gratification. While semen retention has many spiritual interpretations, wisdom lies in balance. Extremes rarely lead to sustainable growth. The spiritual perspective does not require rejecting sexuality altogether. Instead, It encourages conscious awareness and responsible use of sexual energy. The key question becomes, is this energy serving my highest good and the good of others? When used wisely, sexual energy can strengthen relationships, create families, and deepen intimacy. When used carelessly, it can drain focus and scatter attention. The spiritual approach invites individuals to become mindful stewards of their own life force. Retention, therefore, is not merely about holding back. It is about learning when to conserve energy and when to express it in a meaningful way. Ultimately, semen retention from a spiritual perspective is about turning inward. Modern life constantly pulls attention outward through stimulation, entertainment, and endless desire. Retention creates a pause in that cycle. In that pause, a man begins to encounter himself, his thoughts, his motivations, his fears, and his aspirations. This self-confrontation can be challenging, but it is also the starting point of authentic spiritual growth. Many traditions teach that true power comes not from external achievements, but from inner alignment. When thoughts, actions, and values move in harmony, a person experiences a sense of peace and purpose. Semen retention becomes one of many practices that can help cultivate this alignment. The spiritual perspective on semen retention offers a profound alternative to the modern world's often reductionist view of sexuality. Rooted in ancient traditions like yoga, Taoism, and Tantra, it posits that semen is not just a biological fluid, but a vessel of vital life force, or ajas. The practice, therefore, becomes a sacred discipline of conserving and transmuting this energy for higher purposes, enhanced vitality, mental clarity, deeper relationships, and ultimately, spiritual awakening. While these claims reside in the realm of spiritual experience rather than empirical science, they point to a universal human aspiration for self-mastery and transcendence. Whether one views it as a path to brahmacharya or a tool for personal growth, the essence of the spiritual approach lies in its intention, to honor and direct one's creative energies not outward in momentary release, but inward toward the discovery of one's highest potential. As with any profound practice, the key is a balanced, mindful approach, one that respects ancient wisdom while remaining grounded in a healthy understanding of one's own mind and body. Join the Retain to Thrive Telegram channel at the link below, where we focus on building discipline, overcoming distractions, and achieving goals. Join the supportive community sharing tips, motivation, and accountability. Let's grow together, one step at a time. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share the video.